if people started to realize this and started to use it, I think Zcash could really take off. Arguments against Zcash are like so wild and make no sense. So they can't even find like a good reason to talk badly about Zcash, which is pretty funny. I'm like, that is the dumbest argument I've ever seen, because you could apply that argument to literally anything, including Bitcoin. That if that is your best argument against Zcash, that makes me want to buy more of it, because that is a stupid argument with literally no technical merit. So Rafiki, if you stacked Rafiki 1.0 with ChatGPT 1.0 side by side, Rafiki is like 10x better than ChatGPT 1.0. I think they just kind of do what they feel like doing. I think the Fed is a very archaic system. It doesn't work in the modern era. The rate cut odds, 85% say there's going to be a 25% or a 25 basis point cut. Pretty funny. I was going to say it's like 90% likely, which is pretty much what Polymarket's saying, that there's going to be a rate cut in December. So with a rate cut around the corner, it's kind of interesting to think why our market's getting beaten and battered so much. I think the rate cut's probably already priced in. We really need the Fed's comment to switch from hawkish to dovish, and then I think we would be in a much better position from like a global market standpoint. Outside of that, I think generally, crypto has these massive swings up and down. If you've been in the industry a while, you know that happens. The surprise for me has been the lack of altcoins doing well. That's kind of like, this is the first cycle where we're not seeing altcoins perform well at all, really. So even ETH like barely, really scraped an all-time high out of that, and it wasn't anything to really write home about. Altcoins haven't done super well, and really, if you had like a few very specific altcoins, you did amazing, and then most just did not do well at all. So the general altcoin market was not the same this time that it was in past cycles. I don't know if that's to say that this cycle is over. I think most people are asking that question. Is this cycle over? My gut instinct is that it's not over. I think that the markets are just very volatile right now, and there's a lot going on politically and from an economic standpoint. So I think there's just a lot of whipsaw. But that all being said, I don't think the crypto cycle itself is like over. I don't think we've seen everything in terms of this. So we'll see what happens, in terms of the markets. I put out a tweet that the only, there's so much manipulation going on in the markets right now. It's like record level manipulation, and whoever you want to point a finger at for that, it is whoever you want to point a finger at. But the manipulation has it doesn't really matter who's doing it. It just matters that it's happening. So really the only way to make money in this market is just to have high conviction assets and hold them for a long period of time. And the more that I've gained years of experience in investing, the more that I've realized that the only real way to succeed in markets in a big way is literally to just have high conviction assets and hold them for a long period of time, and don't be shaken out of them. And I think that's where the high conviction asset part of things comes into play, where if you're holding something that you have a lot of conviction on, then you obviously aren't going to get shaken out easily, provided you're not over leveraging yourself. Brando's saying X isn't working. If you guys are on X, I don't even know if my mic was on for the YouTube. All right, if you guys are on X, please let me know. Actually, just give me like a full, like whatever stream you're listening to, just tell me if it's working or if it's not working. So, and if it's not working, you probably couldn't even hear me say that. So just let me know if there's any of the streams that aren't working, and I'll look into it. But the X to me shows that it's working, so we'll see. And I see a few people listening on X, so I feel like it's probably working. So anyways, whoever is doing the manipulation doesn't matter. If you're holding high conviction assets, you shouldn't get shaken out of them as long as you're not over leveraged. And the only way to make money is to basically hold a lot of these assets that you believe firmly in, and then just keep holding for a long period of time until you either want to take profits or your conviction changes. And that's where I've made most of my money in my investing career. So don't get shaken out of the things that you believe in, essentially. Speaking of things that do well and that you don't want to get shaken out of, Zcash has done ridiculously well in this cycle, which, I had an interesting journey into Zcash back in June, which ended up being like this really good timing for me. So if you look at the Zcash chart, it was like $40, $50 for a really long time. Was this like over a year? Well over a year. I don't even want to go back further than that, just for the sake of the stream. But it was like trading between like 40 and $50 for a very long time. I got into Zcash pretty heavily in June because Maya Protocol added Zcash trading to cross-chain swaps through Maya. Obviously, Leo was built as a Maya Protocol first interface, and then we started adding protocols afterwards. So what ended up happening was, Zcash got added to Maya, and we started working on it, and we were the first interface, I think, by like a 2-week margin for adding Zcash trading, because most people couldn't figure it out. So a lot of other interfaces were trying to add it. The Exchange.js package didn't have it, and basically most interfaces like could not figure out how to add Zcash swapping. So we were the first to add it on Maya Protocol, and the first to support it. I think we're still the number one in terms of volume when it comes to Maya Protocol and Zcash swaps specifically. So it was really fun to kind of dive into the weeds and figure out how to add it. And then as we kind of progressed, I started learning more about Zcash, and then I did a podcast with someone that works kind of core in the community, essentially doing like developer relations. And his name's Paku, and I did a podcast with him. You can go on the YouTube channel and watch that if you want. It's really interesting because he really took us through the journey of like how Zcash works and how shielded pools work, and how the Orchard pool works. And after that podcast, I just remember thinking like there are so many layers to the technology Zcash that like the whole world has no idea about. And if people started to realize this and started to use it, I think Zcash could really take off. So I started buying some Zcash by nature of like developing for it on LeoDex, and then having these conversations with people in the ecosystem, and just getting really fascinated by everything that was built. I'm obviously a pretty technology first investor. So when it comes to technology, I got fascinated by what they were building. And back then, Zcash was like $45. So right now, I'm looking at the chart, and Zcash is $500. So it's been a nice 10x. Obviously, when something does well, you always wish you had more. So I obviously wish I had more Zcash, but I'm just glad that at least from like a project and technology standpoint, LeoDex was able to add Zcash before all this stuff got crazy, because obviously now everyone and their mother wants to support Zcash, and that's awesome. And I love that there's more support. It's a positive for Zcash and the industry as a whole. But you could definitely see like who are your real friends, and like most people are integrating Zcash because they see obviously there's a lot of money to be made, with the market cap increasing so dramatically and all the trading volume that's happening. So I'm happy that we were the first to add it, and in terms of being a DEX interface, and just being first, that makes me happy that we added it for the reason that the technology is really good, and I believe in the ecosystem. And hopefully you've seen, I'd say like my Twitter or X habits are like primarily Leo stuff, obviously, and then outside of that, it's like at least half of my posts on X are about Zcash now. So I'm just pretty deep in that ecosystem and really happy about it. And it's a lot of fun. So I think Zcash is going to keep doing really well. I know people are like talking about if the price is going to go down, if it's going to go up. They're getting a lot of kind of speculation and people trying to essentially talk shit about Zcash now. And really, I made a tweet yesterday and was laughing at the arguments against Zcash are like so wild and make no sense. So they can't even find like a good reason to talk badly about Zcash, which is pretty funny. I think like the new conspiracy is that there could be like a mint bug for Zcash, and then it's all going to zero. I'm like, that is the dumbest argument I've ever seen, because you could apply that argument to literally anything, including Bitcoin. That if that is your best argument against Zcash, that makes me want to buy more of it, because that is a stupid argument with literally no technical merit. So I think it's just really wildly interesting. And yeah, so that'll wrap up my talk about Zcash. We're working on some cool stuff from a technical perspective in terms of new Zcash features, and this will actually segue me nicely into LeoKit. So with LeoKit, that's where the whole team is working now. We're building LeoKit from the ground up. So LeoKit powers LeoDex, and this, the introduction of LeoKit, I think, is going to be a really interesting moment for us, because it becomes kind of a showpiece of what LeoKit is capable of. And then we're able to use that as kind of like to go to integrators and say, hey, if you want cross-chain swaps, the same way we've got them on LeoDex, you can integrate it, and that's the same thing that runs LeoDex. And I think this is going to be really kind of like a fascinating time for us from a, really from like a development or like a project standpoint. It's a new way for us to enter the industry. We've never really done anything before that's like B2B. Everything's been very B2C. So with a B2B, product like LeoKit, it's gonna require kind of a shift in how we do things in terms of getting customers into the ecosystem for Leo. So I'm pretty excited, and we're working on building better relationships and being more active in different communities and with projects, and just keeping communication lines very open. That's kind of a new thing for us. We've typically been very public. We're on Threads, we're on X. If you want to talk to us, and obviously I've been doing this AMA every week for pretty much 5 years now or something like that. So I've been generally pretty public, but not very good at having group chats and DMs and whatnot. So that's been a part of things that I've been trying to be better about, which is especially related to LeoKit, but also related to just growing the volume on LeoDex in general. So it's going to be really important to just keep building these relationships and get people integrated into LeoKit. What I think we've done with LeoKit is really special. This gets me into the kind of weekly updates that I'll run us through. But with LeoKit, we wanted to build something that's not. So there's basically two other kits that are out there in the market. There's SwapKit and there's DKit, and we wanted to build something that's a lot different. I don't even know if we're going to call it LeoKit in the long run. I mean, that's the name right now because the market will understand what it is. But in the long run, we might change that name. But LeoKit really does something different than I think all of the other kits that are out there accomplish. What we've built is something that's incredibly easy to implement. So it is literally a few clicks and you can have cross-chain swaps on your interface or within your wallet. And we've built something that's fully modular. So essentially any integrator can decide exactly what they want. They can choose to support only one asset or only two assets, or they can choose to support every asset. They can choose which protocols to support or not support, one by one, or obviously support them all. And we've got 6 protocols right now, and we'll continue to add more as time goes on. And it's just the best way I can put it is that it's as easy as essentially creating an account on AWS and generating an API key. If you're capable of doing that, you're capable of integrating LeoKit, which I think is a new feature in the market that from what I've seen, that doesn't exist. It is, and obviously, you don't have to even create an account. You just, either connect an existing wallet or create a new wallet, connect it to LeoDex, and there's going to be a whole LeoKit section. And then you connect it, and then you literally generate an API key, and then you use that API key. And then you can obviously tweak all the parameters as much as you want. And you can change the parameters whenever you want as well. I think LeoKit's just going to kind of be a game changer for LeoDex in general, and then really the entire Leo ecosystem and cross-chain swaps at large. I think a lot of these wallets and integrated will be happy to have something that's a lot more simple. You also will be able to essentially just get what you want. You don't have to integrate all the different things. So it's going to be interesting, and we've got some integrators we're talking to now, and I'm pretty excited about some of the people we're talking to. It's pretty insane. There is clearly a market desire for a new type of kit, and I'm starting to see that. So other than that, we released Rafiki 1.0, which is Leo AI's LLM model. I'm very excited about it. Obviously, you guys are using it. If you're on InLeo, you've been playing around with Rafiki. Essentially, look at Rafiki as being our 1.0, ChatGPT model. So he definitely has some issues. He needs to be tweaked. He needs fine tuning in real time. But overall, I mean, if you compare 1.0 Rafiki to 1.0 ChatGPT, Rafiki is very capable. He's got a wide range of features. He can even read images. He can read videos and understand them. I see Gargi saying that YouTube's not working, but other people are saying that it is. So let me see if YouTube is working. YouTube's working fine for me. Gargi, I would check your connection or something. And then if anyone else has problems, comment, and then I'll check it. But YouTube looks like it's working. Rafiki is very capable. He can, if you drop a link to a video or a GIF or an image, he can read those and understand what's in it. And, there are just so many features for Rafiki that are already live and so many more that are on the way. And like I said, we're in the stage of fine tuning in real time and have a lot of work on that front. So the more you interact with Rafiki on InLeo, actually the smarter he gets and the better his model gets. And as we progress to the 2.0 model, and go check out the weekly X post, the weekly recap, if you want all this stuff in article format. But in the blog post about Rafiki, I talked about the 2.0 model, and the 2.0 model will add a lot more data to Rafiki in terms of the data sets he has. So he actually has all these data sets. We just need to enable them, but we're kind of enabling them, one by one. So it's important to fine tune as we add more data sets. We don't want to just add them all at once, but getting very interesting in terms of what Rafiki is capable of handling. So I'm excited to see how that progresses from an LLM standpoint. So right now, Rafiki is live on Threads, and some of like the bigger ticket, roadmap items are we're going to add a chat, essentially like a support icon to LeoDex. So if you want to get like real time support about some issue you're having, you'll actually be able to chat with Rafiki directly on LeoDex, and you can share like screenshots of what you're seeing, and you can just describe your issue, and Rafiki can actually troubleshoot with you. And he's trained on all the LeoDex docs, obviously. But I think the more interesting thing about Rafiki, which actually ties into an X post I made yesterday about where I think LLM models are headed. I think LLM models are headed in this direction of personalization. So the more personalized the data, the better the model is going to be, because models are kind of converging towards like this very capable standpoint, where like, okay, it's kind of like a computer, right? At a certain point, like you can build a computer to be so fast and so capable that it no longer actually matters, right? Like you're beyond you're just building a benchmark computer. So you're building something to just surpass benchmarks and set new ones. And really, from like a gaming standpoint or like a usability standpoint, like what you're not really accomplishing anything more. There's nothing noticeable for the end user. LLM models are kind of reaching this point, in my opinion, where the models are getting so capable that very soon, in my opinion, whether you use, and maybe some of you have already noticed this, whether you use ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or whatever, the difference between the models from a general standpoint is like almost null or like unnoticeable. So what's going to get more interesting is when a model has deep personalized knowledge or specialized knowledge about whatever you need that model to accomplish. And we're already starting to see this with different applications and like vibe coding apps and whatever, where there's specific models that handle specific things. And I do think that people are going to start to trend towards using different models to do some very specific task. And then you'll probably have like one model that you use for general stuff. So you might, for example, have like ChatGPT that you use for general stuff, and then you might use like 5 other models that are all very specific to those 5 separate tasks. So long-winded way of saying that Rafiki is, being trained on Inleo right now, and he has all the data sets on, he has all the data sets of like LeoDex docs, all the real-time blog posts, all the real-time threads that happen on Inleo. And then whenever you guys ask a question to Rafiki on Inleo, for example, that gets added to his training. He actually learns every time someone asks a question, and then he gives an answer. So that makes capability of answering for the next person even better. As Rafiki's model gets improved, his ability to answer questions on future issues, whether it's on LeoDex, whether it's on Inleo or otherwise, gets that much better, right? So you can imagine, on this roadmap where Rafiki is on LeoDex in like a little chat bubble. If someone asks, him, hey, I'm having this issue with this swap. Well, maybe someone, last week asked the same question and got an answer from Rafiki, and they troubleshot it in real time. Rafiki will be even more capable of helping that second person. So I actually think Rafiki will be this like incredibly capable real-time support agent for all Leo products, whether it's LeoDex, LeoKit, Inleo, Leo merchants, etc. Rafiki will kind of like run the whole business in terms of tech support. And speaking of that, part of the roadmap is then to add him to Discord. So we're actually already working on that, but he'll have a hook into Discord, and in tech support tickets, he will be the first to reply. So when a user comes in with an issue, obviously LeoDex, we get a lot of tech support inquiries now. When someone comes in with an issue, Rafiki will be the first to reply in real time and try to help that user. And I think probably 80% of the time, Rafiki will be able to solve whatever the issue is for the user. And then the other 20% of the time, Rafiki will basically be able to determine, okay, this user has an issue where they're, someone from the Leo team, there needs to be human intervention. And then Rafiki will basically summarize the whole chat, provide links to, whatever's relevant, and then ping a team member to then jump in and reply and solve the user's issue, which will then, by the way, so it'll save the team a lot of time. And by the way, I pretty much do all the tech support. It'll save the team a lot of time because 80%, imagine like 100 tickets a month come in. 80 of those tickets we probably don't even need to reply to anymore because Rafiki will just handle them immediately. And then the other 20% of tickets where we do need to do something, well, we don't have to go back and forth and chat. Like one of the most wasted times of tech support is that you have to go back and forth with the user. People are in different time zones. You ask a question, you might have to wait a day or two for a reply, and then you have to like try to work it out with this user. Rafiki instead can collect all the data that we might need and ask the right questions so that when a team member eventually jumps in, hopefully everything's just kind of summarized and linked out. And, someone like me on the team can just jump in and in like 5 minutes do the human intervention part to solve the user's issue. Overall, I think it'll make our tech support turnaround time vastly better, which I think is very important for growing LeoDex and LeoKit and Leo Merchants and all the things we're working on that front, because those things are very support heavy. They require a lot of time from us in terms of support. So I think Rafiki will play a big role in that. The next big piece of the roadmap is to have Rafiki's own. So he'll have a ChatGPT-like interface where you'll basically just go and you'll be able to chat. And we're going to add stuff like image generation and whatnot inside of that. And if you're an InLeo premium user, you'll be able to access that interface. So basically that interface will be like, there might be like a freemium model where like you can ask like one question a day if you're not premium. If you want to like essentially utilize Rafiki at that like max capacity, you're going to need to be InLeo premium, which is a $10 a month subscription model where the 100% of that goes to Leo buybacks. So there's like 140 premium subscribers right now. And I think that Rafiki is like that explosive moment where we could potentially 10x the subscriber base. So we'll see how that progresses, but that's basically the big ticket roadmap of Rafiki. And like I said, if you look at any AI 1.0 model, they're very rough in the beginning. It takes a while to like really build up the model and make it really capable. Like you look at, if you can go back in time in your brain to when like ChatGPT first came out, obviously it was like mind blowing because it was brand new, but ChatGPT really sucked. If you think about it, like could not read images, couldn't even search the internet. So, ChatGPT's knowledge base was up until like November or whatever of the prior year. And then if you asked a question like about a real-time event, ChatGPT had no idea about it. So Rafiki, if you stacked Rafiki 1.0 with ChatGPT 1.0 side by side, Rafiki is like 10x better than ChatGPT 1.0. So you can't compare a 1.0 model to like a 5.0 model. I think ChatGPT is on like 5.1 right now. So as that progresses, then you can start to compare. Like I think if you compare Rafiki 5.0 to ChatGPT 5.0, well, you're going to be in like a completely different environment. Rafiki is going to work very differently by the time we get to that model, and we'll have way more data. So you need to look at AI as like a very iterative thing. Each iteration cycle is massively important. Next thing on the weekly update is tokenized gold. So LeoStrategy launched their second real world asset. It's called Tokenized Gold, or TGLD. So the pre-sale ended yesterday for Tokenized Gold, and I think it was really successful, honestly. One of the best, I think the best designed pre-sale from LeoStrategy. And you need to remember the goal of these pre-sales is to launch a new asset and get it to market as soon as possible. Because when like the whole point of these assets is that you can trade them freely. You can obviously trade them on Leo if you search TGLD or TTSLA. Those are the two RWAs that they've built so far. The goal is to get these to market ASAP, and to get them to market and openly, traded, both on LeoDex and then also on all the Hive Engine interfaces. So obviously these are all cross-chain RWAs, which I think is a whole innovation in and of itself. If you think about it, how many projects are building not just RWAs, but then they're also building RWAs that live on two chains at the same time? And there's a lot of reasons for why LeoStrategy builds them in that way. But what I think is fascinating is as LeoStrategy improves the pre-sale model and really the model for RWAs themselves, you're going to see them get these to market faster and faster. And the future, the vision is there's 100+ of these RWAs, in the next couple of years. And each RWA tracks obviously some asset in the real world. They're all backed by Leo. They all pay a daily yield. So they pay, between 3 and 20% APR every single day. LeoStrategy is able to do all of this. And like I said, there's a reason for the cross-chain model, partly because these are cross-chain assets. So LeoStrategy essentially operates their own bridges for all these assets. And then they're able to whitelist their market maker to have a lower fee than normal users, which means that they have a moat on market making. Since For example, Tokenized Gold has a pool on Uniswap, TGLD, USDC, and then it also has a pool on Hive Engine with TGLD Leo. You now have two separate pools that are paired with two different assets. So USDC is obviously stable at $1, and Leo is obviously a pretty volatile asset. So you've got two separate asset pools that are on two different chains, and they're connected by a bridge that is owned by LeoStrategy. So their market maker is able to balance both of those pools, and you'll see that obviously the number one trader in those pools is their market maker, and they have 5 of these market makers for Leo, LSTR, Surge, TTSLA, and now TGLD. So you'll see that they're the main trader in these pools, and every day they're generating profits from the market making. Those profits are then used to pay those daily dividends, and then anything above what is needed for dividends goes to buying back Leo and putting it on their balance sheet, which then over collateralizes the existing asset stack. So again, and I like to say, whether or not you want to get involved in something like this, because obviously there's risks and you should understand them, it's at least just a very fascinating experiment in economics that's kind of like playing out right before your eyes. So, buy $1 of it or buy none of it, but at least like pay attention to it, because I think it's just fascinating. And as they continue to tweak the model and improve it, I just think we're going to see more and more RWAs, and they're going to perform better and better. So Tokenized Gold is trading right at its peg, which is 1/100th of GLD. So it's hovering right around its peg. These assets are synthetic RWAs, so they're meant to trade, within a few percent of that peg. Sometimes they might be a little bit more, sometimes it might be a little bit less, but I think it's pretty amazing to see them get to the marketplace and kind of get some early traction. So I'm excited to see what comes next and as these things progress. But really, the goal is get them to market and then scale the market cap as time goes on. So as they get more demand, LeoStrategy can issue more of them strategically. When they're over their peg, LeoStrategy can issue more and then expand the market cap for them. All of this is very important for the long term. So you got to look at these things with a 5 to 10 year mindset, in my opinion. But I do think that LeoStrategy has the potential to lead when it comes to RWAs, which is obviously a huge topic of conversation right now. So that covers us on Rafiki, LeoKit, RWAs. The near intense integration is starting to get some traction. So we integrated near intense on LeoDex, and we've started to get a lot of traction on it. Actually, we've gotten, I think, almost like $2 or $3 million in volume now through near intense. This is a newer integration for us. Near intense is obviously exploding in terms of volume. Zcash has been a huge leading indicator for near intense swap. I'm excited to see more and more volume come to us through all these different integrations. And one thing I've learned a lot about this entire really DEX industry is that it's all collaboration based. So really what I'm seeing is, if you want volume, you have to collaborate with other ecosystems, and that's like the number one form of marketing to get more volume. So I think where we take the team and LeoDex next. Obviously, we're doing all the LeoKit stuff, and this is pretty synergistic to both missions, which is 1, grow the LeoDex volume, and 2, grow the LeoKit volume. And through integrations, they're both very interconnected with just reaching out to projects, talking to projects, working with them, and actually being collaborative, versus our approach in the past, which is not that we were anti-collaboration, but just that we were so focused kind of raw technical development that we just favored that over working with people and trying to be collaborative. So I think that's changing for us, and we're at a very good place from a technical standpoint. And it's time for us to now kind of bring up this other aspect of the business, which is to collaborate with other businesses and projects in the space. Near intense, I'm excited to see more volume. We want to do more kind of collaboration on that. I'm seeing a lot of other ecosystems getting involved. So we will work hard on that and try to get the word out there. That covers us on the updates, by the way, for the week. So let me read I saw some questions while I was going, but I just wanted to finish the updates. So I'm going to go back through all of these. Hey, Winanda, thanks for coming. Master Lambs, how blind is the Fed flying in the U.S.? Last I've seen, the shutdown hindered institutes to do the reports on labor and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think generally they're pretty blind, and I don't think the shutdown helped. But I also don't think it hurt that much, because they are so blind that I just don't even think the data actually matters. I think they just kind of do what they feel like doing. I think the Fed is a very archaic system that doesn't work in the modern era. I actually posted a post on X about this yesterday, but the Fed's effectiveness if you had like a trend line, the Fed's effectiveness just keeps trending towards zero. You could even say they have a negative effectiveness because they're just like ruining markets. I mean, it is like such an archaic system. It has no positive impact, in my opinion, on the markets. Like to have some board of people deciding what to do about the markets, and by the way, not doing it with real-time data, but doing it with outdated data, it makes no sense. So the whole market like waits for these remarks from one guy, obviously Powell, and then they wait for these rate decisions from this board, and it just makes no sense. It's completely illogical. So I think I hope that in the next maybe 5 to 10 years we start to see some new systems come into place where the Fed doesn't have these this huge decision tree and impact on the markets, because I just think it's super archaic. I mean, we live in a time where there's instant information about pretty much everything. Hedge funds have instant information, market makers have instant information. They're making decisions in milliseconds. The Fed is making decisions on data that came in a month ago. So that is completely illogical. I hope to see it change. But yeah, they are flying pretty blind. Wananda said, same here. I don't think the crypto cycle is over. I agree. Brando said X is not working, but I tested it and it's working. If you're listening on X, let me know if it's working. Wananda said hodling some trusted tokens for a long time is rewarding. Yeah, I agree. That talking about the high conviction assets, I agree with that. M Coins came in to say that they can't stay, but they'll listen to the recording. Hi from the recording. Wananda's using Rafiki to ask how does Zcash work. I'm kind of curious. What did Rafiki reply? I'm just going to read this. So Wananda asked, because this is kind of a cool. Well, let me put it on the Threadcast too. Actually, the Threadcast recording. All right. So Wananda asked, "Hey Rafiki, in details, how does Zcash work? And how much has ZEC grown?" And Rafiki replied, "Zcash is a privacy-focused cryptocurrency forked from Bitcoin. It uses ZK Snark's zero-knowledge proofs to enable shielded transactions, hiding sender, receiver, and amount details on the blockchain while keeping the total supply verifiable. Key feature is shielded pools. Users hold claims on ZEC in these pools without revealing addresses or exact amounts. For a pool with 1,000 ZEC, you see the total, but you don't see how many claims. Example, 100 addresses claiming varying shares or individual holdings. This allows private transactions, like using cash versus a bank card, while transparent options exist for users who prefer visibility." And speaking of shielded pools, if you want a really good explanation, again, I'm going to plug that Paku episode I did. So just search, I think you probably just search PACU Zcash and search Cal or LeoDex on YouTube, and you should find that episode. His explanation of shielded pools was like my light bulb moment on Zcash. He explained it extremely well. So go watch that video if you want to know how shielded pools work better. Rafiki said, Leo ecosystem integration. LeoDex supports natives so one thing about Rafiki is he will always steer you back to Leo, which I love. I think we are going to tune that down a little bit, but I do love that in general, he'll not only answer your question, but then he'll say, well, how does your question also relate to Leo, which is obviously good for us. But I do think we'll kind of tone that down, or maybe we'll add a feature where you can turn that off if you want. So he answered the question about Zcash, and now he's talking about how Leo relates to Zcash. He said, Leo ecosystem integration. LeoDex supports native Zcash swaps on Maya protocol, including shielded and transparent ZEC from any compatible wallet like Zashi. You can use QR codes for seamless cross-chain trades without connecting your wallet. So that's obviously the QR to swap feature that we built that, by the way, nobody else has. So basically it sends it to a temporary swap account. You confirm the swap, and then you receive the output asset like Bitcoin or ETH. For ZEC growth, check current market data or on LeoDex or CoinMarketCap. I don't predict prices, is what he said. And then he linked out the Leo AMA, where we talked about Zcash all-time highs back on October 10th. And then also the shielded, here we go. He even linked this shielded pools explanation that I was just mentioning from Paku. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's even the clip from it. So there you go. Rafiki even surprises me a lot of the times. So if you actually look at that, he even linked the shielded pool clip from the episode I just talked about. So pretty awesome. Rafiki is very capable, like I said, and only getting better. I mean, you will see that every day you use Rafiki, there is like very slight improvement. It's like every day. And then if you took like a week break and then came back, Rafiki's that much better. So that is the way that models tend to progress. He'll only continue to improve. Mod Manga said, I don't have time to listen today, but greetings. Hey, if you're watching the recording. Nifty said, speaking of B2B, what's the status of Leo Merchants? Yeah, Leo Merchants is going really well. It's very closely interconnected with Leo Kit. As we progress on Leo Kit, Leo Merchants will get better as well. And I think it's going to be, another one of those kind of like key pillars of the Leo ecosystem. And obviously 100% of the fees go to Leo stakers as USDC. So as we progress on Leo Kit, I think Leo Merchants is also going to progress like kind of a full frontal push. So I'm excited to see, but we are piloting a lot of stuff on that front. So you're going to see when we're ready. I obviously when it comes to something like, and Leo Merchants, if you don't know, is IRL payments that use cross-chain rails for the settlement. Like a customer can come in and pay in Bitcoin, and the merchant can say that they want USDC, and the customer pays with Bitcoin, but the merchant receives USDC. And then the swap from Bitcoin to USDC happens completely on LeoDex's backend, which is obviously known as Leo Kit, aka Leo Merchants will be like a subset of Leo Kit. I think that this is going to be hugely valuable for our ecosystem. But that being said, with IRL payments, they're obviously like microtransactions, and then you also need them to work flawlessly and in real time. It takes a lot of work to iterate and refine, but I'll be excited when we can start showcasing that live. Let's see here. Master Lamp said, what's included in the kit? In short, essentially everything that like other kits can do in terms of swapping capabilities, or if you look at like LeoDex, like what can LeoDex do in terms of swaps, that's what Leo Kit is. And it's bundled into an API so that other apps, wallets, interfaces can integrate it, and then they don't have to worry about swap protocol support. So instead of like having to go out and manually figure out how to integrate each protocol, you can literally just go to LeoDex, and there's going to be like a whole section for Leo Kit, and you'll be able to generate an API key, and then you'll just plug that API key into your app or website, and then you'll be able to do cross-chain swaps. And then a percentage of each swap goes to X as a fee for that. And then you can also set your own fee on top of that to essentially charge to the user. So you get a fee, and then LeoDex gets a fee, and obviously LeoDex's fee goes to the Leo smart contract. And then anyone who's staking Leo can claim it as daily USDC rewards. Let's see here. YouTube. It's funny to see 3 comments in a row where someone says YouTube is not working, and then 2 other people say, yes, it is. So check your local connection. Let's see here. Yeah, Rafiki being able to solve tech support is a good thing. I agree. Rafiki seems cool. Nice progress. Thanks, Brando. Master Lamps, it continues to improve. Yeah, continual improvement. I mean, iteration is really the key when it comes to AI models. Brando said, can Rafiki receive rewards from voting? If so, what happens to those? No, Rafiki actually burns all the rewards he receives. So if you upvote Rafiki with either Hive Power or Leo Power or both, those rewards get burned to null. Master Lamps, I would just tag them on thread. Winanda, yeah, collaboration boosts growth. I agree. I think we need to, this has been something that kind of lacks in our ecosystem when it comes to growth is collaboration. So you're going to see that my focus shifts a lot towards collaboration, because I think the technology is in a very good place in terms of being able to handle 6 different protocols, and it's bug free, and I'm very happy with the state of LeoDex. And then obviously we're building Leo Kit in the background. Now what we need to see is volume, because honestly our volume is pretty low when I compare our UI side by side with some of these bigger UIs. And not to trash talk anybody, but like for example ThorSwap, they're doing tens of millions of dollars a month in trading volume, and if you compare ThorSwap to LeoDex side by side, ThorSwap, like try to connect a key store or any, half a dozen wallets to ThorSwap, and half of them don't work, and the swaps themselves tend to fail. But with LeoDex, we've obviously worked really hard to like fix all those things and make sure that they work, and then add more protocols and support. When a new asset comes out, whether it's Tron or Zcash, LeoDex is the first to support it, usually with a 1 to 3 week plus margin in terms of how quickly we add it. I think from a technology standpoint, and again, it's not to trash talk anybody else, but just from a technology standpoint, I think we are, way above and beyond what's out there right now. And obviously we can always do better, and we always will do better. But I think what we're lacking now is just the connections to get the volume. So I'm very surprised that our volume is not growing proportionally with the technology. But that goes to show you the limitation that I have, which is, I'm obviously much more technology oriented and much less marketing oriented. So I tend to build the things, but then getting people to use them is a whole other thing. I'm trying to adapt to that in real time and change my ways a little bit and be better about it. So hopefully you'll see the results of that. And the fun thing about LeoDex, which is actually a saying I say often about money. One thing I love about money is that it's the ultimate leaderboard, right? Like you can't really fake it in terms of reality. And it is like kind of like the leaderboard or the scoreboard for the game of life. And I think that with LeoDex, it's amazing to have a scoreboard that is just really obvious. So, if we're succeeding, you see it in the volume. If we're not succeeding, then you see it in the volume. And if the volume's growing, then we're doing the right things. And if it's not growing, then we're doing the wrong things. So it is like this kind of very immediate feedback loop, which I'm big on releasing fast, getting feedback quickly and iterating. So having quick iteration cycles is how you succeed at really everything. So having an immediate feedback loop in the form of volume is like this thing that you can check. It's like a score. It's like how like a score on a test. It's like how well are we doing? And you can see it every single day, and you can say, okay, well, volume's not growing. We're continuing to improve the technology. So what is missing? What is the missing piece to make this volume go up? And I think, like I said, collaboration, generally getting the word out to people that, we have in my opinion, obviously a biased opinion, a superior product to what they're already using. Getting people to switch their cross-chain swapping interface is extremely difficult because they will endure bugs on other interfaces just because they're familiar with them. And when you're familiar with something, you tend to trust it. And in my opinion, trust is the number one thing when it comes to cross-chain swaps. So it takes a lot of time to build trust in the market. Doing podcasts like this obviously helps too, because people see like, there's someone real behind all this stuff, and there's a real community. Like you guys are all in the Threadcast. There's real people behind all this stuff, and there's people that care to give the best product to the end user. And I think that will shine through in the long run. But there's definitely more we can do to grow the volume in the near term. So we will continue to do our best on that front. I am all the way through the questions. If you guys have any final questions, feel free to drop them. We are past 1 o'clock now, so I'm also good to drop out of here. Like I said, the near intense thing, very interesting. We're seeing a lot more volume there. Seeing a lot more volume with Zcash, which is great. And my focus right now is just growing the volumes while we continue to build LeoKit. I think growing the volumes needs to be our 100% focus. So that is where all my time and attention is going right now. I am looking on the YouTube for questions. Got a funny comment from one of the team members. That's really funny. Yeah, I think we're all good. Thanks for coming to the AMA. Hopefully it was still good. We didn't have Mitch today, so he had like a last minute obligation he had to run out for. So just me today. Hopefully I got to all of your questions. Master Lamps, make sure you tag at Leo Strategy for your question. I'll ping someone too that I know, Jessica on their team, who does their tech support. So I'll ping them and tell them to respond also. But yeah, that should get handled. And then outside of that, if you know anybody in the crypto space and you want to have them reach out to LeoDex to do any kind of collaboration work, again, our mission is to grow the volume. So that's where our focus is going to be right now. So have them reach out to either myself on everywhere. You know where I am, Discord, Telegram, X. I'm literally everywhere. Or the main LeoDex account's also fine. So just do that, and let's keep growing the volume. That's like I said, that's our number one scoreboard. So bookmark the volume page and just keep checking that. Yeah, thanks, Master Lamps. Thanks, Wananda. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I see Matt in the audience, too. Thanks for coming. Raymond was in here, too. Thanks for coming, Raymond. And we'll see you next Tuesday. I'll ping Taskmaster. Maybe we'll do a Lion's Den this Friday also. Actually, it's going to be the day after Thanksgiving. I'll see if Task is around. I know it's a holiday for most people, so I'll see if Task is around, and maybe we'll do a Lion's Den Friday. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Same time, same place, noon Eastern-ish. See ya.